All right, apologize for the bad lighting. When I get more of this stuff set up, we'll have that corrected. But for now, we're just gonna go through some tow truck fails. We're gonna skip through a little bit because this stays basically lights green, waits until light turns yellow, traffic clears, and this car is not secured, and it just falls right off. We can see that this corner has already disconnected previous to this because the vehicle is not turning with the tow truck like it should. It's only turning on this front corner where that is still barely hanging on. And then once you get that rotational force on there, it kicked out what was remaining of that arm there. And it looks like we're on scoops. I think that looks like scoops. So it popped out of there. And then what's interesting is this car just continues to go. Now, normally it would be in park, so if it fell off, it would skid to a stop, but this one just continued to roll, and I'm not sure if it hit the vehicle there or not, or stopped on the curb or whatever. But luckily, nobody got hurt. Shitty situation, but all in all, not terrible for what it could be. So this is a good reason why I like to leave my vehicles in park, whether they're on a flatbed or a wrecker. I always put them in park. That's just one extra thing to keep it from rolling if all else were to fail. Now, we have an issue here. Looks like it wasn't in park. As soon as you unstrapped it, it started rolling. And that truck also, for whatever reason, decided to start rolling the other direction. So not only did you hit the car behind you, you almost hit the car ahead of you. And I'm sure the whole underside of that car, bumper, skid plate, all that stuff, suspension, even though it doesn't look bad, these damage claims pay out thousands because the insurance companies will either total the vehicle or they will require all of the suspension and steering components and everything to be replaced because of how hard the impact was. Whether or not it's damaged, they still require it to be replaced. We have a giant helicopter, and these things, they weigh a whole lot, and they are stupid expensive. So the connection point disconnected for whatever reason, and now the chopper is basically just rolling down the ramp and hitting things along the way. Basically what ends up happening is the entire aircraft has to go through an inspection. All the systems have to be checked. Any damage done has to be corrected. And even though it might have looked like it just rolled off, it ends up costing just buckets and buckets of money because of the safety aspect of it. We can't just say, oh, we got a scratch on the fender. This is an aircraft. It goes into the air. We need to make sure that it's able to fly and nothing got damaged. It's a ridiculously expensive mistake. So this is what happens when the vehicle does not have locked steering and you go around a corner. Sometimes the wheels can kick off one direction or the other, or on the opposite end, if the steering wheel is locked but the wheels are not straight, the vehicle will drag one way or the other. I'm not particularly sure the situation about a Cybertruck as far as the steering goes. I'm sure it's electronic steering, so I don't know. But anytime there's an electric vehicle, I prefer to put it on a flatbed or dolly it so none of the wheels are touching the ground, because even if it does roll, there can be regenerative braking and whatnot, and you could possibly damage some of those systems by rolling those wheels. So anytime you're dealing with an electric vehicle, just, keep it off the ground if possible. All right, now nothing of noteworthiness really happens on this one. It's just a truck pulling a Ford Focus with a tow strap. But we've all seen plenty of videos where this ends up in disaster. Now, this guy probably would have paid 150 bucks for a tow truck, and I've seen it many, many, many times where this doesn't go the way they want it to go. The vehicle's obviously not running, so they probably have no brake assist, no power steering. They have probably little to no communication with the driver, so it's very, very easy to lose control of this vehicle. Very easy. And then when it has to get cleaned up when it crashes, usually there's damage to this vehicle as well, and this vehicle, so then it becomes very, very expensive instead of just 150 bucks to bring this thing back home and fix whatever the problem was. All right, don't do this. This is a terrible, terrible idea, and it only takes one pothole to completely just delete yourself from humanity. This is a guy riding in a shopping cart behind a semi-truck. I don't even need to list all the reasons why this is a terrible, terrible idea. It would be a fun experience, but not anything I'm going to be trying anytime soon. So this is going to be a dually with a sneaker lift, not an obvious tow truck, kind of a truck that can sneak around and you don't even know it's a tow truck until, you know, you see it pulling something. So this guy would have picked up this guy, and this guy jumped back in his vehicle or was already in his vehicle, not really sure. We can't tell because this video starts after that. And when he pushes the brakes, these repo trucks, they don't put straps on until they are away from the scene normally. And then they have the ability to get out and, you know, not be fighting with people. So normally they pick them up, roll them away, and then secure it sometimes. But this guy is in the vehicle. He hits the brakes, which locks up the rear wheels, and there's nothing stopping it from just popping off the lift. So it pops off the lift. Yeah, you're off the lift, dude. Drive away. What are you doing? And then this guy makes a second attempt to grab it somehow, you know, from an angle that is not going to be very good for what he's trying to do. Yeah, like you're going to push the lift away. And there he goes, pops over the curb. And then this guy chases after him, dragging his equipment and just trashing on his whole truck. If my drivers ever did anything like that, they would be gone immediately. Listen, the truck is how you make your money. If there's no truck, you don't make any money. You got to respect the truck, okay? Bottom line. All right, now this is a good example of the oscillation and the compounding oscillation that happens when you load your trailer incorrectly. You get one little shimmy and it compounds on itself in the right frequency. And then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it wipes out the rear end of what looks like an Astro van here. And you crash. You have no control at this point, and you are at the mercy of physics. Now, there's a lot of good videos on properly weighting and loading your trailer. All right, so this, in Europe, they have, for the skinny streets, they have flatbed tow trucks with cranes on them, where the crane would go over a car. It's basically spreader bars and straps that would go to the wheels, and it would just lift the car up and put it on the back of the truck. So this crane, normally when this situation happens, somebody doesn't actually turn the hydraulics off, and there's usually like a bad seal or a creep in the hydraulics. So as they're driving, it slowly moves. Like when you see the videos of the dump trucks that are up and they hit a bridge, it's usually because somebody didn't turn off the hydraulics. And then we get here. So we lose control, and then we immediately get sent off. Luckily, he didn't hit that car next to him, but the other thing that I want to point out here is we lose control, we veer off, and we do have a vehicle on the bed of this truck. So not only did he damage the bridge, severely damage his truck, now we have damage to a customer vehicle as well, and that's just a third layer of oopsies to this whole situation. All right, so this guy is pumping gas, and the truck starts rolling. He has an open door right here that he could hop in and set the brakes. Instead, he decides to go around it, risking himself getting run over, to hop into the driver's side and then hit that brake pedal. Which luckily he doesn't get run over. He does hit the brake pedal. But then he gets out and he released the brake pedal. Come on. We have a red Chevy and a Cybertruck. The Cybertruck could not manage to get the boat up the ramp, so we had to have another truck with a strap come and assist it. If you want a truck to do truck stuff, get a real truck. If you want a novelty, go buy a Cybertruck. So, all right. Normally, we have an oscillating vibration again, and sometimes this can happen if a vehicle isn't tracking straight. It can kind of try to shimmy and bounce one side or the other. That's why you get a lot of vibration at certain speeds if your alignment's off. All right, what's going on here? Shouldn't be following that close to a truck. Looks like some crappy weather. And that was a completely avoidable accident that now involved at least 3 vehicles. Not really a towing fail, but just a general driving fail. I don't think there's anything too serious of injuries from this situation. It doesn't look like it would have been that kind of accident, but still, don't be dumb. Looks like we have a little bit of road rage going on. Everybody's stuck in traffic, probably getting agitated. Looks like we have a merge sign, so it's coming down to 1 lane up here. And this guy in the truck is getting a little bit agitated for whatever reason. I don't know if why he pulled over. I'm not sure if there was contact made here or not. Looks like, oh, yeah. Looks like we do see a little bump right there. Yeah, I think we see a little bump right there. So he's probably pulling over because it was technically an accident. Yep, we've seen this a million times. Looks like if he's lucky, it's just the AC unit that can be fixed, but camper stuff is ridiculously overpriced. Check your heights, check your clearances. It's okay to stop and it's okay to pull over and make sure. When I'm towing a really tall load and there's something questionable, I will physically get out and I will look and I will crawl up and I will make sure that I am not going to hit anything. That is a much, much smarter alternative than doing this. All right, what do we got here? Oh, looks like we're ripping off the bumper already. Get back here. Ripping off the bumper. Looks like that might be, could even be like a Porsche maybe, something, that front end almost, maybe, I'm not sure. But on lower vehicles like this, I will, and that's going to be a dynamic lift, not the greatest of lifts. But on lower vehicles like this, I will get out and I will get on my hands and knees and I will look underneath, see what my clearances are, see if there's any splash guards hanging, anything like that. And if there's anything questionable, I'll bust out a jack, put it under one side and raise it up, and that will raise the whole front end of the car, give me the clearance I need to actually get the lift out, and nothing's damaged, everybody's happy, it looks a lot better to the customers when you take extra steps to give extra care, and they call you back. A very, very easily avoidable situation if you just take the steps to be more careful. Now, he ripped off the bumper. He can clearly see that. Tow trucks have backup cameras. So why are you continuing to drive forward and cause more damage? A lot of times, if you just pop out those corners, if you're lucky, the clips don't break, and you can pop them right back in, and everything's good. If you continue to drive forward like this, you end up causing a lot more damage and actually ripping stuff. And it looks like there might have been some sort of strap or bungee cord or something that he forgot to disconnect. Something got caught up. Maybe it was like a coolant line. If you look closely here, see that? That's some sort of cabling, cordage, something. I don't know if it's from the car or from something that he was, securing something with. So it looks like he goes to his controls, releases a little pressure on it, and then frees it from his truck. But just be more careful. All right, I'm going to mute the audio because I don't know if I'm allowed to play that or not. But we have a tow truck on railroad tracks. We got a guy running, and now we no longer have a tow truck on railroad tracks. So this may or may not be a true story. I will admit to nothing, but I may or may not have had a time where I have had a crossarm come down onto my tow truck on my flatbed and get caught between the car I was pulling, or the car on the bed, and the cab. And I may or may not have had to just continue driving forward to snap that crossarm off instead of getting hit by a train. Theoretically, hypothetically. Maybe. I admit to nothing, but if you're in this situation, it's better to drive forward and snap that crossarm off. They're designed to come off instead of lose your whole truck and possibly injure or kill somebody and then have a whole issue with the railroad. These ones are always great. All right. This one has been around for a very long time. This one's actually in GIF form. But this is what happens when you don't secure the vehicle either by a closed system or a block, a stop block, or, you know, engaging the parking brake or some sort of system to secure the vehicle. When you flip it over on its wheels, it might roll away from you. And this happens a lot more than you think it does, and you learn from it the first time, hopefully. But not everybody does. Instead of a simple rollover where it could have been cleaned up pretty quickly, now we have a whole recovery down into the woods. And that part of it becomes an insurance nightmare because that's additional damage caused by the towing operator, not caused by the accident. So now it's going to be a whole bunch of litigation back and forth instead of just bringing it back to the yard and getting paid. All right. You know, this probably came off a very rusty truck that was no longer safe to be pulling trailers. All right. This can only go badly. There's a height clearance, and there's also a width clearance some places. So make sure you know all of that information about whatever you're pulling.
Would you like to come in, Michael? I need to get my car out.
It gets better, though.
Ready, then. Go on, give it some.
Campers are built like tin cans, and they fall apart very easily. There you go. We call these Copart wiggle wagons because a lot of times, what does this guy say on the back? It says in tow something something. A lot of times what happens is people, and I know people who do this personally, is they buy cars in different states from Copart auctions or IAA auctions or whatever, and then they daisy chain them together. They take out the axles and stuff, and then they just chain them together and roll them down the highway like this. And I have personally cleaned up a situation where a guy took one of these, went around a corner, and two of them went into a pond, and I had to pull both of them out of a pond. So this is what's known as the Copart wiggle wagon. Driving on a flat tire. I was actually picking up a car the other night in a parking lot, and on the main highway right there, I turned around, heard a noise, and there was a dude in a truck driving on a flat tire. And he took the exit, and, you know, he went and changed it and everything, but I just saw this the other day. Noteworthiness. Oh, yep, here we go by again. All right. Clearly not a very nice merger. Listen, tow trucks already get enough hate. Don't be this guy. Do not be this guy. If you got drivers that are this guy, get rid of them. They are only a liability. And there is no amount of money that they will make you that will cover this type of fuck up. Yep. We have the same situation as before with the oscillating load. Same situation, pretty much the exact same thing. Now this one was on icy roads, which I'm sure accelerated the situation, but yep, looks like we're starting the oscillation early, right there, starting to go side to side. If this happens to you, slow down, pull over, regain control. Don't just continue to try to pull out of it. It's not going to pull out. It's just going to get worse and worse and compound on itself. Looks like this guy actually did slow down. See that? He started the oscillation, he hit his brakes, and then he was able to slow down enough to regain control. Now that, from here, it looks like a very, very long trailer with axles that are pushed way back. Watch your tail swing, people. Always keep an eye on that mirror. Your trailer can and will hit stuff if you are not careful. Looks like we got... That guy just barely escaped. I think if the truck wasn't there, that tree probably would have ended up crushing that guy and gave him a much worse day. Alright, watch this tow truck right here. This is another one where the load isn't secured on the back, and as it takes the corner, it pops right off the lift. Now, luckily, the situational awareness of the camera car was, top notch, and he was able to swerve around and avoid getting hit. If you can see as it pops off, neither one of those straps were on those wheels. They were used, but you do have to keep an eye on your straps. That one was no longer even attached to the truck, and that one was just barely hanging on. You do have to keep an eye on your straps. If you go over a rough bit of road or whatever, I like to get out, resecure my straps. Even, you load the vehicle, lift it up a little bit, put the straps on, and when you lift it up again, it actually changes the angle of where the strap is on the tire and the tension on the tire. So you kind of sometimes have to readjust. And after I leave a pickup, if I go through a rough bit of road or something like that, I will actually pull over, get out and check my straps, because a rough bit of road on the initial pickup will not only sometimes loosen the straps, but the first chunk of bumps will cause that vehicle to just sink a little bit lower into the lift, and it will loosen up those straps enough where then you get a situation like this, and it's no good for anybody. So just be extra careful, get out and look. It does you a lot of good. It saved me a lot of headache getting out looking, catching things before it actually became a problem. This is, I've seen people do stuff like this. All right. This looks like it could be a towed with a rope situation. Yeah, we can see the rope right there. And like I was saying before, you can see now this situation didn't really have too much going on. These were both really light vehicles, but you can see how one vehicle losing control can easily make the other one lose control and roll it or pull it into something. Luckily, that was all it was, the extent of that one. All right, well, I actually have something else I got to go do, so that's about it. See ya.